me, the Chief Executive Officer of the FCCPC, Mr. Babatunde Irukera. Thank you very much. It's nice to have you here again.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Well, 2 days, very intensive, educating, technical, emotional. I can go on and on. How did it come to you, that 2 days? How do you feel after completing it now? Because I know it's not really easy. It was hectic.
Well, I feel relieved that we were able to successfully conduct this inquiry, and I realized that we accomplished more than we expected as far as gathering information, providing information to consumers, and certainly getting the right people around the table. I commend everyone who participated, the panel, the Lagos State government, the federal government, the target hospital, and certainly the NMA, and even the medical profession. I think it was quite collaborative, it was open, and there was frank discussion. I think we're the better for having done that.
So let's look at some of the outcomes. A lot of issues here, even revealing, even for me, that I didn't know as a person that I have this right. So now what should be there, or what are the takeouts of all of this? I know a lot came out of these discussions, but let's itemize or pick out some of them.
Well, as far as a determination of what the findings were, it's premature. We've got a whole panel.
Okay.
And what we're doing right now is collating the record because everything was recorded verbatim and it will be transcribed. And so there'll be record, and then there'll be exhibits for us to all look at as we proceed to writing a report. But having said that, there are a few things that I can say that I identified, and I'm not saying one way or the other how they would end, but at least I can say that I saw that. One is, I think, the question of the appropriateness of some of the questions that patients are required to answer became quite an issue there. And from the knowledge I gathered just from the process is in advanced trauma situations, you've got what you call your primary survey and the secondary survey. And the primary survey is usually, I mean, whichever way you're trying to stabilize the patient. So the question of patient history, and certainly the question of how the injury arose or how the trauma arose are in the secondary survey. Okay. And so at least we know that we can have a conversation around what should belong in the primary or in the secondary survey. So things like police report, they're certainly not in the primary survey, and there shouldn't be any reason why anyone should be refused care. So I think just even putting that in the proper context for caregivers to understand and guide how they proceed in the future, it's very important. Secondly is emergency responses. And so you've got the emergency response apparatus nationally, even the ministry now, and at state levels we do have that also. But there seems to be a missing point. I mean, those emergency response apparatus framework, they address catastrophic emergencies, mass emergencies like mass injury, mass death, and all of that. But the daily individual cases, someone got knocked off the road, someone fell off a motorbike, or people who are victims of violent crime like late Ms. Balogun, we need to do a lot more. We need to proceed to a point where there's an institutionalized manner of response, typically something like an ambulance service with trained paramedics and who have an integrated system with hospitals in the locality, knowing where to take emergency cases or not. And one of the things that would happen with that is that the chances of saving lives increases. And also the controversy about police report is addressed, because when a hospital is receiving someone from a legitimate ambulance service from proper paramedics, the question is not whether there's a police report or not. It's usually just what they need to continue to do to provide care. One of the experts yesterday explained that typically the first hour is the most important, or in fact the determining window of whether people who have serious trauma would survive. And so it means that every minute counts, and we should focus those initial minutes on how to preserve life. And he explained it, given the A, B, C, D, E of how to do that. And so I think that those things coming out, and the general public recognizing and realizing that, and certainly other healthcare workers doing that, I think that was phenomenal. I think it was phenomenal.
I'm looking at the Patient Bill of Rights, talking about effective implementation of this Bill of Rights. Can you shed more light into what this means to an average Nigerian?
Well, the Patient's Bill of Rights is not in itself a legal document.
Okay.
It is an aggregation of the rights that exist in different pieces of controlling instruments, whether ethical codes or professional oaths, certainly the National Health Act, and then, of course, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act, and then just globally accepted norms. And so what we've done is to aggregate all of that and put it in the same document so that everybody knows it, both from a consumer side and from a caregiver side. Are each of those rights enforceable? Absolutely. They're enforceable not primarily because they're a code in the patient's Bill of Rights, but because there's a force of enforcement and legality in the original or the primary origin of those rights, or the document where those rights were captured from. And so I think the Patient's Bill of Rights is a very important document. We haven't succeeded that much in making sure that everybody understands these rights, both from a caregiver side and the consumer side, and how to enforce an enforcement mechanism around it. We haven't succeeded as much as we would want to. But having said that, there have been a lot of successes. For instance, between when we created the Bill of Rights and now, we've received hundreds of complaints with respect to treatment at medical facilities. Prior to that, in the first year and a half that I was at the organization, we didn't receive any, but just one. And so I think that that's a good thing. We've referred more cases of potential inappropriate professional conduct by doctors to the MDCN. And we've seen that the MDCN has certainly become more active. In the past year, at least well over 6 doctors have been subjected to discipline,
wow,
which is far more than what the case was in the preceding 3 years to the Patient's Bill of Rights.
Wow. I'm looking at something. When you're talking, I just thought about it. Is there supposed to be an attitudinal change, even with us as humans, to the way we react to issues like this? Because saving lives, it's very important. Why can't I just do what I'm supposed to do and later I can ask questions? At least save life at first. I'm not a doctor, but I'm looking at it that way. I don't know.
And you're right. I mean, because even the best professional code will still require people who have the appropriate attitude, especially in something like medicine, where empathy and compassion and sensitivity and responsiveness are the defining characteristics of how well you do. And so that's one of the things a public inquiry like this does. At a minimum, what it does is that it educates everybody. People now know, and they know where to go to in the future. And then for either these particular caregivers or other caregivers, everybody now recognizes that there is a framework somewhere that could subject their conduct to scrutiny, even after the fact. I can't see how that would not modify behavior.
Indeed. Let's move straight to World Consumer Rights Day. I know we can go on and on with this issue because it's really, I can see that passion talking about studying all of this. But let's not look at that. That is upcoming. That's tomorrow. And the theme is attaining sustainable consumption in Nigeria. Looking at what we face at the moment, there's coronavirus. You've been all around trying to address the issue of people taking advantage of prices, taking advantage of people. Now putting it side by side, what's your take as we move World Consumer Rights Day for 2020? And what's your message to Nigerians?
So the World Consumer Rights Day was actually on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
But it's been commemorated on different days of the week.
Oh, okay.
And because
so
of
it goes on.
Because of the public inquiry, we didn't commemorate earlier on in the week.
Okay.
We're commemorating, and the theme this year, like you rightly said, is sustainable consumption, sustainable consumer. And that's, you can look at that from different dimensions. The dimension that we're looking at this year is engaging industry, especially the food and beverage industry, with respect to packaging and using biodegradable packaging material to promote a more sustainable environment. But the point you made about other key areas of that play into all the things we do. I mean, and recent ones, like you said, is intervention with respect to price gouging. I mean, sustainable consumption also depends on fair pricing and a fairness and an elimination of unscrupulous exploitation. And so that's what we did, and although many people criticize us for that, but now after the fact, everybody seems to recognize that all over the world, there are laws that prohibit price gouging, including criminal laws. And so we're proud that Nigeria took a lead in trying to address that. And what we did has certainly modified behavior in the market. People still reach out to me to talk about how expensive sanitizers are, and but I ask, just imagine if we didn't intervene at all. I mean, in one particular location, sanitizers moved from 490 naira at 8 a.m. in the morning to 2,500 naira before 7 p.m. that same day. And so that's the kind of thing that we intervened to prohibit. And then, also recently we closed down a business because of what we consider discriminatory selective patronage. Allowed certain nationals to sit and patronize, whereas, and all of that affect consumption. And so for sustainable consumption and for the purpose of a sustainable consumer, it's very important that the entire operation of the law, such that it protects them and continues to level the playing field for all those who want to enter and do business.
Message to Nigerians, what should we expect from you as a roundup?
Well, we would continue to be criticized, but make no mistake about it. We have both the stomach and the liver to continue the work we're doing. We're convinced that we're on the right path, and because of that, instead of backing down, we intend to accelerate.
Thank you very much. Instead of backing down, FCCPC intends to accelerate. You've heard it from the Chief Executive Officer of the FCCPC, saying it live here on TVC News. Thank you very much for your time. It's always nice talking to you. We hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you.